Whether you're trying to be a legendary hero, a top-notch thief, or a powerful criminal, you're gonna need some extra brain power if you want to make it far. In DreamWorks' latest film, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, several characters make some pretty clever moves, allowing them to gain the upper hand. However, there are a few characters that make some dumb mistakes. But out of all of them, who's borderline brainless and who's just on the edge of genius? Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Bench, and this is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish characters, dumb to brilliant. As you guys probably know, major spoilers going forward. First, we have the characters who are not the brightest, the ones that are more often than not clueless, as well as the ones who don't typically make smart decisions, which fit our first characters to a T. The gold medal of dumbness goes to the Serpent Sisters. They're the bounty hunters who Jack hires to steal the map to the Wishing Star. You would think that them having an impressive and successful career would mean that they were pretty smart. But while they may be skilled at murdering, according to them, they don't come off as the sharpest tools in the shed. You've got one sister who all but insults Jack, asking him to do what he's famous for, according to his nursery rhyme, as she laughs at him. The other sister, after seeing how angry Jack is getting, tries to save herself by poorly trying to throw her sister under the bus. The highlight of their dumbness, however, is just the fact that they actually believed Jack when he told them that they'd earned their weight in gold, and then didn't hesitate when he offered them the hands of Midas. The only smart thing they did on screen is get out while they could. The silver medal of dumbness goes to Baby Bear. While the Bear family in general isn't too bright, Baby definitely stands out as the dumbest due to his age and his brash personality. When the family fails to track down Puss in Boots, Baby takes it upon himself to come up with their heist plan, which doesn't go well. Baby is also fairly careless in several moments, such as when he gorges himself on honey and falls asleep, making it easy for Puss to steal it again, or when his acting without thinking leads him to springing his own trap on himself and his family.
Is that a stick? What are you gonna do with that?
It's no wonder that he tends to refer to Goldie being, as she says, the smash to her grab. The bronze medal of dumbness goes to Mama Luna. For what it's worth, Mama Luna has a good heart, being incredibly protective of her cats, as well as any strays that stop by her home. But whether it's her age or a natural sense of obliviousness, Mama Luna isn't the most observant. She fails to notice that Pero is actually a dog that's disguised as a cat. And while she does notice Puss doing things like cooking on the stove or using the toilet, she fails to realize that he's not an ordinary cat or even wonder why Puss is doing these things. We also see in the interrogation scene with the bears that she's a pretty terrible liar.
My cat can play better than you!
But for what it's worth, we can commend her bravery, even if her actions aren't too effective. Next is Pero. Being just a puppy, it could be argued that Pero comes off more as naive than outright dumb. This is especially the case whenever he says a bleeped-out swear word, not fully realizing what he's saying, as well as when he failed to recognize the simple fact that his previous family had been trying to get rid of him. Pero is also easy to trick and manipulate, not always being the most observant when it comes to himself. Though again, this may also be due to his naivety and his willingness to believe in the good of others.
I'm Puss's best friend!
No, he isn't.
But what puts him right on the edge of this tier is Pero's high level of emotional intelligence, being the one to help Puss through his panic attack, as well as giving both him and Goldie well thought out advice. You could also say that his successful disguise and his status as bilingual also point to some hidden intelligence. These small moments do go a long way, even if Pero still manages to land towards the bottom half of our list. Our next section is the average folks, the characters who land somewhere in between dumb and brilliant. Starting off the tier, we have Mama and Papa Bear. Much like their son, Mama and Papa, more often than not, seem to take things at face value, not being as clever as their daughter and often needing her to lead them. Mama is even briefly tricked by Pero's disguise, needing Goldie to point out that he's actually a dog. Both are also very easily distracted, as seen when the map conjures up an illusion of their cabin.
What's all this bother about?
Overall, they never come off as too dumb. After all, Papa is shown to be a pretty skilled piano player, while Mama is, at the very least, emotionally intelligent enough to know when something is weighing on her daughter's mind. For all these reasons, we felt like right on the edge of average was the perfect spot. Next up, we had the village doctor. Being a doctor or veterinarian of any kind would already point to someone having a decent amount of intelligence, but it should also be noted that this guy also serves in several other positions, such as being his village's barber. However, skills don't always transfer to a person's common sense or sense of judgment. Like many other medieval doctors, the village doctor prescribes to the so-called miracle cure known as leeches, even using one on himself after Puss refuses, despite still being on the clock. At the same time, his recommendation that Puss retires is a pretty sound one.
Relax!
Max, I am Puss in Boots!
Since he's only in one scene and there's so much we can go off of, we felt that this doctor manages to land right in the middle of the intelligence chart. Now we have the Baker's Dozen. True to their name, they prove to be very talented pie makers in addition to being fairly competent fighters. Obviously, there's a reason why Jack used them as a defense force in the first place, even though they tend to stand up better against mortal and non-magical threats than they do against the Magic Forest. What brings them down a couple of points is their failure to even try to run away once they realize how deadly this mission is and how little their boss cares about them. We don't know whether or not this was a forced choice or one driven by loyalty. You would still think there'd be some hesitation when it came to running headfirst into man-eating plants or using themselves as a bridge for the sake of their boss's carriage. Now we have Cricket. The Cricket serves, or at least tries to serve, as Jack Horner's conscience. With this, it can be inferred that, in addition to having a strong moral compass, the Cricket also has a decent amount of emotional intelligence, allowing him to more easily understand the people that he's trying to help. We will say, however, that the Cricket, at the very least, knows when to call it quits, not being dumb enough to believe in someone who makes it very clear that they won't and don't want to change. That's more than we can say for the Baker's Dozen, and this, plus his ability to save himself after Jack tosses him aside, as well as a lack of dumb moments overall, earns the Cricket a spot in the upper half of our list. Since we don't consider any of the characters in this film to be super geniuses, our final section will focus on the characters who are college-bound, the ones who easily shine when it comes to their intelligence in certain fields. Entering our top 5, we're ranking Goldilocks next. In case we haven't made it clear, Goldie is the smartest in her family when it comes to crime. She's their leader and is often the one coming up with heist plans. She also has the strongest level of focus, resulting in her being the one who helps the three bears get back on task regarding their mission. We should also note that, for most of the film, Goldie is able to hide her true reasons for seeking out the wishing star, showing that she can be sneaky, even a bit manipulative too, even if she doesn't necessarily want to hurt her family.
Oi, baby, sniff him out.
What puts her in 5th place is simply the fact that, in comparison to her other top-tier characters, she never manages to do anything that's extraordinarily impressive. But still, credit where it's due, she's definitely the brains of the Three Bears crime family. Next is Big Jack Horner. Being the film's big bad, it's only natural for him to be one of the film's smarter characters, making him more dangerous. We learn early on that he's a very successful businessman, which then allows him to use his pie-making profits to pursue all the magical items that he wishes to collect. Jack is also very proficient in effectively wielding each of these weapons and is fairly good at thinking on his feet, as well as thinking ahead, as we see when he packs both the Mystic Orb and the Alice in Wonderland cookie, keeping him as a worthy threat even after he loses all his men. Though that's actually the main reason why we couldn't put him in our top 3. Though his actions lie more in his self-centeredness and selfishness more than anything else, you would still think that Jack would be strong enough to not just waste his entire army, if only so he'd continue having a bigger advantage. The bronze medal of braininess goes to Death. With it being as psychological as Death, it makes total sense that he would be able to read people as well as he does. After all, he's probably dealt with plenty of people similar to Puss, making him more wise and experienced. Death is also shown to be extremely skilled when it comes to combat, making each of his wins feel more earned.
Can I get your autograph?
Like with the Cricket, Death doesn't have any dumb moments, so while he doesn't get as many on-screen moments for his intelligence to shine, like our following 2 characters, we feel like 3rd place is warranted. The silver medal of braininess goes to Puss in Boots. Let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. When it came to some of his previous lives, he died in some dumb ways. However, there's a fine line between having a lot of arrogance and having a lack of intelligence, and we feel that Puss leans more on the former than the latter. What supports this theory is the fact that, outside of his most arrogant and careless moments, Puss can be a very clever cat.
You will find your reward does not come easily.
No scene proves this better than the film's opening, where he outwits both the governor's personal guards and the giant, who he's able to knock out, thanks to a combination of strategy and acrobatics. Although we had to dock a couple of points for some of his more foolish moments, it's hard to deny just how crafty this kitty can be. Finally, our gold medal of braininess goes to Kitty Softpaws. Although Puss may have her beat as a hero, it can't be denied that Kitty is a far better thief. And not just because of her soft and clawless paws. When we're first reintroduced to her, Kitty's shown to be incredibly stealthy, hiding in the map's chest until the moment is right and she makes her mistake. But even after Puss blows her cover, Kitty is still able to evade capture and continue showing both her sneaking and her strategic skills. Much like Perro, Kitty is also very emotionally intelligent when it comes to her furry ex, with it almost coming off as her knowing Puss better than he knows himself.
Nice catching up with you, Puss.
For all these reasons, we're naming Kitty as the smartest character in Puss in Boots 2. Alright guys, that's the list. Let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge our Dumb to Brilliant playlist, where we figure out which characters have the most wits. But most importantly, stay wicked.